guys? Welcome back on Sport Vitamins, episode 32. Today I'm here in Pesaro in my hotel room waiting for the quarterfinal of the Italian Cup Final 8. We're going to play tonight, so the episode will be released tomorrow. We will already know the result. Hopefully it's going to be a great game for us. And last week we had an amazing episode with Adam Pathway. I had a lot of good feedback from you guys. I really appreciate it. And today's guest is none other than Jesse Wright. I'm really honored to have him as a guest because his career has spanned over 2 decades in team sports, including working with NBA teams, NFL teams, and NCAA teams, and in the private setting, of course. And Jesse most recently spent 14 years with the Philadelphia 76ers, first as a head strength and conditioning coach, and then as the director of performance and science. And also during his time in professional basketball, he was named the NBA's Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year in 2013. And he also served as president of the National Basketball Strength and Conditioning Association from 2013 to 2015. Jesse is also the author of an amazing book, guys, that I really recommend to all of you. The Intent is to Grow. Go check it out on Amazon. Amazing book. Together with Jesse, we discuss so many very interesting topics such as soft skills versus hard skills, how to improve soft skills, and how you should prepare for the first meeting of your career, and how to create a better environment for your team. So, guys, without further ado, enjoy episode 32 with Jesse Wright. Coach, welcome on the show.
Roberto, thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to our conversation here.
No, thank you very much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. So why don't we start with a background?
Sure. Most recently, I have, a high performance consultant, kind of taken on a number of different projects, consultant type projects for different teams and organizations, all centered around high performance sport, but a couple different areas. And my what I call side projects or my passion projects are all centered around soft skills. I released a book last April, built a website around that concept, and slowly trying to grow a brand around that message. My most recent team experience was with the Philadelphia 76ers. For 14 years I spent with that team in 2 different roles. 9 of those years were as the head strength and conditioning coach. 5 were in a role titled Director of Performance Science. Prior to the 76ers, I worked for a private sports training organization that dealt primarily with middle school and high school age athletes, but we trained all ages and a little bit younger, and we had some pro and college athletes as well, and a couple of high level strength and conditioning contracts with college and pro teams. That's how I actually got introduced to the 76ers. I was a consultant first, and that organization was named Summit Sports Training Center, a couple centers outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And then before that, I had strength and conditioning roles with the Philadelphia Eagles, with the Barcelona Dragons over in your neck of the woods in Europe, right? That was NFL Europe way back when I was started out early on. And I started off at University as an undergraduate assistant as well. So that's kind of the lineage backwards. So very fortunate to have a lot of experience early and lucky to have some high level roles. I feel very fortunate and thankful to a lot of people that have helped me along the way.
Yeah, very, very interesting background. What I want to discuss with you today are mainly soft skills. So first of all, for those who don't know, can you please tell us what soft skills are and what's the difference between soft skills and so-called hard skills?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great place to start because soft skills, as much as people know probably the categories and they know the characteristics of these skills, they may not know that this is even a term or a global category because it's not a household name. So, the other names are interpersonal skills, people skills, social skills. I've said repeatedly, I don't really care what they're called. That's not as important as what they actually are. So just to kind of compare the 2 categories, your hard skills are are generally your degrees, your certifications, your licenses, all of the formal education, the products of formal education, whether it's weekend courses and you come away with a certificate, or a 4-year undergraduate degree, or advanced degrees with a master's or a PhD. Of course, in the strength and conditioning world, there's tons of different certifications and letters that you can place behind your name in response to all of our continuing education opportunities. And there's so many options out there to grow your technical knowledge and your domain expertise, the what you know part of what we do. And it extends to other industries as well. These are the skills. This would be a chef, and how he prepares his recipes and his dishes, and what he does for flavoring. And it could be an engineer, and everything that he learned to design a building, or how to, software engineers, how to code and all that stuff. It's basically all of our knowledge. And then you move over to this other side, which my message and this concept, this Balance the Bar website and this brand that I'm trying to grow and everything, is that those hard skills and that technical knowledge is absolutely necessary. It's probably the first part of what grows what will be a successful professional. But the other side are these soft skills, these interpersonal skills, and it's less about what you know, but more about who you are. And as you navigate your work environments, or even your personal environments, it's kind of your characteristics. It's how you communicate to people, which is kind of what we're going to talk about here today. It's how you interact with others as a teammate. Are you helpful? Do you carry yourself as a person that's sought out for questions and deliver on answers that people see as helpful to help them grow? And do you have strong self-awareness of your own strengths and weaknesses and how they exist in the environment that you're in? Again, either a home personal environment or at work. When you do rise to leadership levels, how do you handle that, right? Are you someone that people look to? Do you have charisma to stand in front of a room and speak and people want to listen to your message? And do you take a servant-based approach? Will you help people grow through providing them resources that they can become autonomous and they can feel valued within the organization, that they're actually contributing on a high level? And then you get into compassion and empathy. And do you place yourself in other people's shoes? And do you understand that people, they want to be seen as individuals, and that moves you to caring? And then you get into a world of versatility and adaptability, and how you service your team best. And those are all just kind of, detailed examples, but it all falls under this bucket of soft skills that kind of define who you are. And really, it ends up being what people remember about you and they end up being differentiators, because there are many smart people out there. There are many advanced degrees out there. But when you really get down to it, that knowledge has to be viewed and perceived well in the environments that you're in. And your soft skills are the way you show those hard skills each and every day, and the way you implement them on the team that you're on. So both are equally important, and that's the concept behind the balance, that you acknowledge both of them and you seek out ways to grow both of them, just as we seek to become smarter and grow our technical expertise all the time, that you seek out ways to continue to grow interpersonally as well.
Okay, Coach, most of my listeners are young strength coaches. They're trying to break into the professional world. And being a young strength coach, just out of college, for example, you are full of hard skills, of course. Your technical knowledge is very good. But of course, there is a lack of soft skills. So can you please give them some tips on how to grow and improve their soft skills?
Sure. Well, the first thing, I'll just go back on my first answer. I think the first thing is to recognize that it is an important category, that you just don't dump all of your continuing education time and effort and money, right, into just the hard skills. So it's first an acknowledgement that this is an area that can and should grow, that it doesn't just come automatically. I think the first step people can take is maybe a little bit of humility and a humble approach that when you see yourself as a professional, that you have areas to grow, and start modeling after people. So take your first couple months on a job, and you first acknowledge that you need to grow this skill set, and then you look to people that may be strong in there already. These are typically people that may have been in that environment for a long time, that they have learned how to navigate the complexities of a high performance team, which are difficult. There are, obviously people that you need to work with, and you need to effectively deal with players, right? We have to deal with athletes, and we have to have strong relationships and connections with them. So you would look to the people that have those strong relationships, and you start to, model yourself after the people that are good at it. And it seems kind of matter of fact, like a little bit of Captain Obvious, but the people that the athletes seek out for help and support, and are the ones that they ask questions to and everything, those are people that are skilled in developing these strong connections and everything. So you just look to those people for guidance and examples and reference points. And that would be the first thing. So you just kind of actively observe, how do they carry themselves? How do they interact with others? If you're in a team meeting, you're in an organizational meetings, how do they communicate their thoughts? If there is a point of disagreement, or say a return to play protocol where there's multiple voices that are tasked with building this approach, you're not always going to agree. So how do those people handle those moments publicly where maybe there's a difference of opinion? And you just start to actively observe. And then from there, I would seek those people out and ask them questions. Both questions about how, similar to how we're speaking, how did you get there? What have you learned through the years? And again, this is kind of where the humility and the humbleness comes in, that you're confident enough to ask questions for their opinion of you, and how and where they think that people can grow. What are their opinions of your own strengths and weaknesses? And you start to build this internal database of who you are, right? First, your own recognition of your strengths and weaknesses, and then their perceptions of your strengths and weaknesses. And you start to build this own internal database, and you start to understand what areas that you should begin to work on. And maybe it is communication. Maybe it's how you implement a coaching cue on a weight room floor. Maybe it is how you speak up in a meeting, or maybe it is an area that when you're interacting with an athlete, that you could be a little more understanding or a little more empathetic to the challenges that they have going on. It could be any list of things, but you don't understand them until you ask. So that's a good one. And then the second thing I would say is that there are, resources out there now. The soft skills and interpersonal skills they are now moving to the forefront of importance. Not just me. There are many other people out there in many industries that are talking about this now, where you may have seen previous decades, as you look back at the 90s and the 2000s when the internet started, and it was this open book of places to go and learn, and you could just look up any single topic and you can get smarter. And a lot of that was centered on domain expertise. That's where all this online certifications came from and everything. And now we're moving into a world where there's many resources that you can grow who you are interpersonally as well. And there are many of those out there. And that would be the second thing I would say in response to your question, is seek out those resources. There are opportunities to grow in terms of how you communicate. There are many resources and literature out there to learn about self-awareness and how to understand your own strengths and weaknesses, and how you're wired, and how to take more of an empathetic approach towards people and all that stuff. There are resources to learn from, and that you seek those out.
Very interesting. And Coach, what's the best way to approach a new working environment, especially in professional sports where both coaches and athletes are always on the move? So we can have a new working environment basically every single year.
Yeah, it's a great question because I would use the word critical, maybe to soften that a little bit, just highly important. Where when you are new to a work environment, and let's call it a high performance environment where there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot riding on success and failure and wins and losses and urgency to get a guy back from an injury or urgency to help a guy get stronger and everything. And there's a lot of pressure on that. And we know the pulse of a high performance organization a lot of times is tied directly to the result. If you're in an in-season format, it might be tied directly to the result of the previous night's game, where people could be in a bad mood, right? Based on a bad loss, and you don't really know the tone of the room, and it could be high or low. And you don't want to misstep in those environments because you could be very, very well skilled technically, but if you don't carry yourself the right way, you lose the opportunity to show what it is you know and to do your job. So it's a great question. And people should understand that when you're new to an environment, particularly for a young coach, you are on a constant proving ground, that you are being evaluated all the time, whether you know it or not. And of course, they're evaluating if you're capable of doing the job that they hired you to do, but they're also evaluating how you fit in the environment and the role you play amongst the team that you've been asked to do. So to answer your question directly, again, I would say first, I would say with loading progressions, we always like to use, a good analogy that I've heard out there is, when you're building in, a return to training camp, right, or a return to on-court loading and everything. The light switch dimmer, a slow graded progression is much better than just flicking that light on and going from 0 to 100 right away, right? We know that when we build in progressions. So I would say take the same approach when you're in a new environment. Big sweeping changes or big sweeping decisions or radical shifts from what it is they are currently doing probably isn't the best approach when you're new. Come in, tread lightly, ask a lot of questions, be quiet in rooms, observe, understand, again, learn from others. Might not be best to speak up first in a meeting when you're new, but just understand the communication dynamic. Stay in, whoever your direct report is. If you're an intern strength and conditioning coach and you report directly to the assistant, might be good just to stay in his pocket. Sit next to him in a meeting and understand, just observe and learn before you make huge steps to prove who you are in that new environment, and just kind of take a slow, measured, dimmer switch approach to being in that environment. And that doesn't have to last months, but weeks to the first month or so of observation and taking a slow, measured approach, I think is a good step. The other big one right off the bat is that you communicate that you are a teammate that is willing to help, that you're willing to fit in the existing environment in a manner that is helpful and beneficial to the team. And of course, hopefully you've been given a job description and you know exactly or have a very good feel for the actual tasks of your new job. But we know in high performance environments, a lot of times it expands outside of that. And that to be a helpful teammate and to do things that maybe involve a small role, maybe some of those lower level tasks like filling a refrigerator, or like, a truck pulls up outside the building and we know there's a bunch of equipment that needs to be carried in, that you are a teammate that steps up and say, you raise your hand and you say, yeah, I'm willing to help. I'm a guy that's willing to contribute to the team. One of the examples you use all the time, and this from traveling with teams, when you go from city to city, there's a lot of luggage. There's a lot of baggage that gets carried with a team. Everybody has one or two bags, and the strength coach has some big heavy bag. Maybe you're wheeling dumbbells around and medicine balls and bands, and the athletic trainers and the physio, they have countless number of bags of equipment and tape and all this stuff that they need. Well, that's difficult. It's difficult to travel. And when you get to these cities, it's like, you could go right to your hotel room when you get to the hotel, or, we did this again 41 plus times in the NBA environment. You can stay behind and help with the bags, make sure they get to the rooms that they're supposed to, and just, even carry a handful off the bus or help load to them the bus, and no one would ever say it's part of your job description, but it does communicate that you are that you seek to help, and you can be and you want to be a valued member of the team in areas that might be termed above and beyond. So I think that's also a good one, because as you communicate that you are what you would call a great teammate, a helpful teammate, somebody that's willing to advance the initiatives of the organization, maybe in small ways, that you are sought out for other projects. You establish yourself as somebody that is a teammate that you can win with. And that carries a lot of weight. There's big return for that as projects get bigger and larger, and you become somebody that that people want to take with them, either on larger projects or maybe in new opportunities, right, to advance and rise to a leadership role within the organization, or maybe when something comes up outside the organization. And it has a fun and interesting way of carrying itself when you establish yourself as that type of teammate in person. So those are my two. Sort of a long answer, but I would say first, learn and observe and take the dimmer switch approach when you're there. Don't make huge changes right away, and then communicate that you are a teammate that's willing to help. Two good strategies right off the bat.
I like it. I'm actually very familiar with helping out with the luggage, especially because when I was back in Israel, I was sharing the room with an equipment manager on the road. So it was even easier for me to help him out with the luggage.
Yeah. And the strength coach's bags are always the heaviest ones, right? You're always carrying a bunch of weighted equipment and everything. So Make sure you're carrying your own stuff and you help others carry theirs.
Exactly. You mentioned being part of meetings. Most of the young strength coaches that I mentioned before are not familiar with being part of a meeting. So how should they prepare for the first meeting of their career? Their staff?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I would think it's the same in international sports. It's certainly the landscape in professional sports, and even elite level college here and everything. Staffs are growing. Organizations are adding personnel in medical and performance. More and more physios coming on board. An organization that had one strength and conditioning coach before is giving that person help, and it's all in an effort to improve the care and the attention that athletes get in this really important area: injury risk reduction, building resilience, lengthening careers, getting people strong. It's finally getting attention where many teams are adding resources to that in the form of personnel and human man and woman power, right? So with that comes a new challenge in communicating information. It's no longer one person, one strength coach just writing the workouts and all of your own terminology, and you can basically kind of operate in a vacuum the way you want your system run. And when you have help, or when you have interdepartmental collaboration and everything, communication becomes a huge issue, almost the number one issue, right? That would define a highly functioning, high performance team. And a lot of that is meetings, right? And that's where I'm going with kind of that introduction, where a lot can get done. If you have an effective meeting structure, you can accomplish a lot in terms of collaboration. And it doesn't always have to be a formal meeting setting. Sometimes it's informal. Let's grab coffee, let's talk, let's meet in a hallway for a minute or two just to review a case that maybe we didn't get a chance to talk to in the set time meeting. So, but when you're in those rooms and when there are multiple people around, I think there are a couple strategies that can produce an effective individual in a meeting setting. And you hit on one of them. You should know the topic of the meeting going in and what it is you need to prepare for. The person that just opens up their laptop and is like searching for the information and everything probably isn't perceived as a prepared individual. So to just take 5 to 10 minutes in advance of the meeting, bring up the documents that you need, understand what the topic of the meeting is, how long are we meeting, what are the big take homes. What would we like to accomplish in this meeting? And sometimes it's just a matter of asking and preparing in advance and understanding so that you can get your own stuff ready to contribute on a high level. From there, you have to understand the communication format of the meeting. Who is leading it? Is it generally a meeting? Because meetings can take a number of different structures. And hopefully it's not one where there's just one person speaking the entire time. But if that is the case, you have to understand that, and you have to understand when the windows of volunteering information are, because you don't want to step outside of those if it is more of a presentation type meeting. You want to wait until they give you the opportunity, they give the members the opportunity to actually speak and be prepared, right? Be prepared and ready to deliver your message pretty succinctly. If it is a meeting where it is open collaboration, where the leader that's running the meeting is generally open to everybody participating and volunteering ideas, then I think the best approach when you do that, again, particularly if you're young and you're not seen as maybe one of the leaders, is to make sure that you deliver your point quickly. Don't get caught up in a bunch of the kind of foundational prep type statements or sentences and everything. Lead with your point and then deliver the support information afterward, because you may not get minutes, right? A long amount of time to communicate your point. So I think a really good strategy in meetings is start off answering the question, start off delivering the biggest point that you're trying to make, and then add in the support information. And when people do that, they know that you're a person that answers questions, that wants to answer the topic, right? And wants to address the topic. And then that gives them a chance to ask follow-up questions for any areas that they may be unclear on. So I think that's a good strategy in terms of communication. And then the other one is, how do you handle these points of conflict? How do you handle if you are faced with a topic that you feel should be spoken up on that maybe is conflicting to what people are saying and everything? How do you handle that? And I think particularly in a meeting environment, and certainly for a young employee, you don't want to be seen as combative. You don't want to be seen as someone that just opposes information in a manner that's not helpful. So I think the best approach there is to acknowledge the person's point and do it positively. Say, I something like, I see a lot of merit in your answer. I see so Roberto, I agree with a lot of what you said there, but I want to push back on just one point right now because I have some differing thoughts. And you just soften it that way, that you're not seen as a person that just wants to go at someone else and say, no, what you said is wrong and I don't agree with that. That's not the most effective way to when there is conflicting opinion to deliver that message, because there probably is merit in what they said. It's probably, many times that you won't disagree with everything they said, but you acknowledge that there is some things that you agree with in what they said. You just don't agree with all of it, and that you feel it's valuable to voice your side of it, that gets heard by the room, and that item is considered, right, amongst the room in terms of the final decision and everything. And that's hard. That's really hard to do, particularly for a young coach where you may not feel comfortable speaking up, and you may not feel that it is your place to raise your hand and present that. And maybe sometimes it is. Maybe sometimes you do need to kind of read the room and understand if this is a place where publicly you view your opinion. And if it isn't, if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. But you should at least get that on the record maybe after the meeting, that if you feel strongly about something and you didn't necessarily feel it was your place to bring it up in the large environment, that at least you get it on the record again, maybe with your direct report outside of that meeting. And at least you get it on the record that way. So I'm bouncing around a little bit there, but I think the big message there is that when you feel it is important to voice your opinion, that you do it in a manner that is helpful to the team and not seen as combative or confrontational. It's okay to confront, but do it in a manner that's professional and respectful.
Great answer. I really liked it. Coach, I want to switch gears a little bit, and now I want to talk with you about the role of a strength coach in a team environment. especially the role of a strength coach as an asset to the staff. So my first question is, how can a strength coach help creating a better environment for players and coaches?
Oh, that's a great question with a lot of different answers. I think it starts with understanding the core of the job description, right? And you're there. I think every good strength coach would tell you the core of what we do is reduce risk of injury and improve performance, right? Relative to both the team and the individual goals. So first and foremost, you have to tick those boxes for sure. Not really the topic of what we're talking about here, but needs to be said, right? That's how we would be judged and graded if you hold that strength and conditioning coach title, right? Now you go to the next stuff, right? We're leaders, we're motivators, we are usually open-minded individuals. All of the strength coaches that I've dealt with, nearly all of them, probably not fair to say all, but many of them are open-minded, growth-minded individuals where we are seen as guys that are open to embracing progression and open to being the people that maybe take on new things. And I bring that up because in the last 5 to 10 years or so, you've seen the strength coach's role advance a lot, particularly in America, again, maybe in international environments, where there's all this new stuff relative to health and performance that can be tremendously valuable to a high performance organization. But you need human, again, like man and woman power to be somebody to assign and implement these things. So a great example is technology. And before, with teams with limited resources, and let's say a team all of a sudden, they have the budget and they want to take on a GPS system or an RFID tracking system, some type of wearable technology to lay an objective layer to decision making. A lot of times, right, in that world, there's a couple different people in a high performance department that might be able to implement that. But somehow the strength coach has become the person that might take that on if they don't have a sports scientist. It's kind of a natural fit, but I think it also speaks to the type of people that strength and conditioning coaches happen to be, that they're open to embracing new stuff and taking it on in addition to the core responsibilities. And it doesn't mean other roles can't or other roles don't in some teams, but many organizations that's fallen on the, kind of under the umbrella of the strength and conditioning coach. And I say that as an answer to your question because I think that's a good thing. You never want to water down the core and thin out the core responsibility. We need to run good weight rooms and write good programs and certainly spend the time, actually training and working in the weight room or the gym environment. But these other supplementary activities that advance team initiatives and add to layers to decision making and all that stuff, I think that's a good thing, to be versatile and adaptable and open to taking those things on, because somewhere the organization identified it as an important initiative and someone needs to own that. For a long time, strength coaches have been involved in nutrition, right? The team might have a registered dietitian for sure, and that should be the foundation of that information. But there also needs to be a day-to-day face of it. Training and nutrition are inseparable, really. So many strength and conditioning coaches are the ones that have to order team meals, right? I did that for a long time with the 76ers that, we had an amazing dietitian, but she was a consultant for the team. She wasn't full-time with the team. So the face of nutrition many times is the strength and conditioning coach. That's another kind of hat that a strength and conditioning coach can wear to be helpful and to advance. And then you get into the world where support for medical or health initiatives, and it could get into musculoskeletal screening or any of the technology. Again, something like some of the musculoskeletal assessments now that are rooted in technology, whether it's like motion capture or force plates, to be open to embrace that technology and to learn about those, because you can, again, learn more information about your athletes that lead to better programming. These are all things that if you're open-minded and growth-minded and adaptable and versatile enough to want to learn about those types of things, that you're perceived as a person that contributes to an organization outside of the core role of just writing a program for an athlete or a team and implementing it and coaching it in a weight room. And if you're open to those, you can, again, you can kind of create a path where you are a very valued asset to the organization in more ways than just being seen as, I don't know what the Italian term is, but the meathead strength coach, right? The guy that just throws around weights and, puts barbells on people's backs and puts them under a bench press bar. Like, this position has grown to be more than that. And when you position yourself as somebody that's willing to learn and grow and be the face of some of the new initiatives, you start to grow and be perceived as a very valued asset of a team.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, especially during the season when times get hectic and strength coaches get to wear so many different hats, like you said. We can definitely add a lot of value to the staff and to the team environment. And
and I should say too, it's not only, I don't mean to portray that as just the strength and conditioning coaches that do that. Again, there are numerous roles on high performance team, from physiotherapists to athletic trainers to physical therapists to sports scientists. And, all of those people have the opportunity to participate in those new initiatives as well. It's just interesting that some of them, kind of immediately fall into strength and conditioning. Maybe it's just kind of a natural fit sometimes, but I think it also speaks to the individual, right? And being open and willing to take on new things, which is it's a strong quality.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to know, what's your communication strategy when it comes to addressing an issue with an athlete?
To answer that question directly, I think it starts outside first. It starts outside of that moment where you have to address the issue. I think if you carry yourself as someone that is constantly feeding the deposits, the relationship deposits, right? This bank account, these withdrawals and deposits from the relationship, the coach-athlete relationship that we have, and you just kind of operate in a world where you are regularly contributing to it and you are earning trust and you're helping them in other ways, and you are doing the things that create loyalty and create an environment where there's a strong connection between the coach and the athlete. Outside of that, of course, you are training them and you're helping them grow and get better and return from injury and the core competencies of the actual role. But maybe you're also speaking to them about their interests and their activities outside of the sport that you're working in. You speak to them about their family. You're interested in their wives and their children's interests. Maybe they have a strong connection with their faith or their religion, and you can connect with them that way. Or maybe they play video games, or maybe you both love, getting a certain type of coffee on the road or something. All of these things outside of the natural connection, your organic connection to them is coach to athlete. But there are many other ways to connect. And as a coach, you acknowledge those all of the time, and you're working to grow and strengthen relationships and trust. Now, when you have that foundation and there's a strong connection there, you move to that moment where you have to address some type of topic. Maybe it's workout attendance. Maybe it is they're not following guidelines. Maybe they were late to a workout. It could be any number of issues where you need to confront. You need to feel comfortable with that confrontation, that you can then lean on the strength of that relationship, that conflict, that moment of confrontation where you have to maybe deliver a message that they would rather not hear in that moment from you, that it doesn't become huge, that you can communicate, look, I care about you. I want you to learn from this moment right now. And I'm just doing my job as your coach and as your leader to bring this to your attention. And hopefully we can see this through to success. And when you have that strong relationship, they know that when you communicate to them that you care and you're actually saying it, that it's real and that it's genuine, and that they know there's real substance to it and you're not just saying it. And then that moment of confrontation doesn't seem as confrontational. It's just they leave that conversation. They may not like what it is you told them, but they know that you told them because you care and because you want to help them grow from that moment, whatever the point of conflict is. And I've been on the receiving end of those from coaches where, you probably have been, head coaches that dress you down for, some type of issue, some type of mistake that was made, or, hey, everybody makes mistakes, right? And everybody messes up at certain times and things go wrong on certain moments. Again, it could be, an unexpected injury. It could be maybe a moment where a coach was surprised and he didn't feel like he was effectively communicated to. And you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it from, high-powered individuals that are wired to motivate people and to get stuff done and to lead and lead people to success. But if it's coming from a leader where you already have a strong relationship and there's all these other moments where that person helped you grow, right, and helped you develop, that you leave that conversation feeling, again, as that the initial acute feeling is, oh man, like I that was tough, that was hard. You leave that room going, man, I didn't expect that. But you also leave the room going, I get it, and once I get through this initial feeling, I know I'll grow from this. And I know he is, or she is, just doing what it is she knows she needs to do in this moment to help grow the organization's goals and maybe help me grow as an individual.
Great. And one tip for young strength coaches when they have to address an issue, how to avoid the temptation to bite their tongue, because I know that it's not easy to address an issue, especially when you're young and maybe you're coaching an athlete that is 15 or 20 years older than you and make millions of dollars. So one thing for these guys.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I remember those moments. My first opportunity to serve as a strength and conditioning coach, I was 19 years old. It was just before my 20th birthday. I was volunteering, but it was a very small staff, so they needed help and they needed sets of eyes on the floor. And I remember those moments, right? And I'm an undergraduate in college, working with athletes that are 2 or 3 years older than me, and working with athletes that knew I was more their peer than I was their coach. It's a difficult moment to speak up when you don't feel it's your place to speak up. So one tip I would say is whether it's in advance of coaching a session and you need to kind of prep and be mindful of it, or in the moment, that you remind yourself who you want to be. And you remind yourself that in that moment you've been tasked, someone has entrusted you in being a leader. And leaders lead by example. And leaders also eventually have to lead by their voice, and they have to communicate effectively, and they have to work through these issues. And the quicker that you do it, even if it's just a very minor 2 or 3 word sentence that you maybe didn't speak perfectly, or maybe you didn't elaborate on the way you would have liked to, or didn't explain it the way, the more you do those things, and even just say the littlest thing or make the smallest mistake, that every single time you do that, it becomes easier and easier, right? It becomes more automatic, and there's less resistance. There's less of that feeling inside where maybe I shouldn't speak up, and you get better at it. You get better at it each time you do it. And if you begin with speaking that, hey, someone has trusted me to be a leader, and leaders speak up and leaders bring things to light, and then you remind yourself that the more I do this, as uncomfortable as it is in this moment, even if just I make this little small effort, and the more I do those, the easier it's going to become. And I want to be seen in my career as I grow and as I get older. I want to be seen as an effective leader, and I want to be seen as a person that could be a head strength coach or a director of high performance somewhere. That the more I do those, the easier it becomes. If you can think of those two things in the moment, hopefully that gets you past that desire to not say anything and turn your head.
Nice, I like it. Coach, where do you see strength coaches in 10 years from now? I mean, the position of a strength coach in 10 years from now.
The position as a strength coach, I still see we're a human being organization. We talked a lot about connection and relationships here and everything. As much as, coming off, COVID and pandemic and this explosion of online resources and Zoom and all that stuff and everything, there are ways to train online, and there are plenty of programs that you could find online that don't involve human interaction. But I think despite those, and despite technology that now brings to light a lot of information that maybe the eye used to see, I think the human component of what strength coaches do, this coach to athlete relationships, this ability to evaluate and correct and motivate and lead and be compassionate and everything, those are things that there's such critical importance to being an effective strength and conditioning coach. They'll never go away. So to answer your question, I believe that role will still be in place. I believe teams will always recognize that this is a critical piece for important attributes and important characteristics way outside of just the defined role of a strength coach. That role serves a bigger purpose on a high performance team than just the traditional strength and conditioning definition. And I think they'll still be there. I think maybe the as we talked about, some of the multiple hats that strength coaches wear, as teams grow, I think that might maybe shrink down a little bit because people are adding more personnel. So the strength coach that did have to wear 5 or 6 hats might only have to wear 1 or 2 or 3 going forward. And maybe they have to be really good specialists in those roles. Maybe they don't do as many various things. The range of opportunities or initiatives they do might shrink a little bit, but they get the opportunity to do 1 or 2 defined roles even more effectively. I think that is probably the momentum and the direction that it's heading. And I think that would come from the athletes too. Again, particularly in a professional environment or high performance, I think the athletes would speak that as well. I think when you survey, you do a debrief or an exit meeting with an athlete at the end of a meeting, if a strength coach has done his job, both technically and interpersonally, that the athletes would speak up and say, you know what, that is a guy, that is a position that we can win with, and it's one that we need. And I think that's kind of the definition. I think that's my answer. I think we're still there 10 years from now. Might take a little bit different form. The job description might look a little bit different, maybe a couple less bullets under there, but I think still a very strong and important piece to a highly functioning high performance department.
Great. I really like this answer. Coach, usually we finish off with 3 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not great on my feet. I don't do well with rapid fire. I do better when I prepare, but I'll certainly do the best I can. Go ahead.
All right. So, one athlete you would like to work with, present or of the past?
Oh, great question. For me, I'm a Philadelphia guy. Wilt Chamberlain.
Nice.
And I say that because being from Philadelphia and working for the 76ers, a team that he played for and everything, the legend surrounding that guy with the type of athlete that he was and just how capable, almost an alien for his developmental stage and the time that he played. I would love to see and to get him on a force plate, right? Or to evaluate his physical gifts and everything, because the people that knew him, I know many people that worked directly with him, older individuals that were around when he played and all that stuff. And the way they speak about him and his ability to play basketball and his athleticism and everything, they'll say it's unmatched by any other athlete kind of in the history of the world. And there's probably a little bit of exaggeration to that, but I would love to see it for myself.
Great answer. Second one, your favorite book of all time, besides of yours, of course, which we didn't mention, but The Intent is to Grow. Great book. I loved it. Go check it out, guys.
Yeah, thank you for that. Right. And I certainly wouldn't be the guy that would answer that question with my own book as much as I know I need to promote it myself. A big game changer for me was the Carol Dweck mindset. That one for me was it was everything that we love to read professionally for sure. In terms of how we speak to people, and again, this concept. I mean, she adopted terms, fixed mindset versus growth mindset that have lived. They've infiltrated different industries and all that stuff. And maybe she didn't come up with it, but most people assign those terms to her. For me, more, it actually kind of created the way I parent for my son and changed the language and how I deal with him. And, this idea with what you actually say to kids can set them up for long-term success in their lives. And the messages that they hear from people when they come home from school or after they finish a basketball game or a flag football game or anything. And, you talk about this notion that they hold in their hands the ability to create who they are through their work ethic, right? And the things that they seek out to grow and develop. And it's not just tied to what they inherited, right? Or their God-given genetics that they can influence who they are. Life altering for me, for sure. So that's my answer, the Carol Dweck mindset. Yeah.
Nice. I will add it to my wish list for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And last one, best tip you've ever received in your coaching career?
Oh, I'll go back to one of my best friends from undergraduate. I was a student manager for the football team. My very first job, I say this jokingly all the time, I washed laundry for my very first job in sports, in elite level sports as an undergrad. And a couple weeks into it, after he got to know me, he's like, look, in this role, young, undergraduate, high performance environment, just keep your mouth shut, keep your head down and work hard. And that advice, as much as you might feel it doesn't serve you well in a leadership environment, right? Keeping your mouth shut and everything like that. That approach in new environments that I was in, to kind of piggyback on my answer before and everything, man, has that served me well. And just, establishing myself in any new role I was in as just put your head down and work hard. And that was the way you kind of established who you were. And you keep your mouth shut and you just watch and learn. Don't speak up a whole lot initially. Speak up when necessary, but just keep your mouth down. Work hard. Show people that you're a hard worker, that you want to be a committed teammate. And man, has that advice really served me well, particularly in high performance environments. And I still to this day thank him for that. He didn't know he was doing it. He was just like, dude, just keep your mouth shut and work hard and you'll do well. and it worked. It was great advice. Yeah.
Yeah, hard work always pays off.
It really does. It really does.
All right. If some of our listeners would like to reach out to you or find more about you, where can they find you?
I'm most active on social media on Instagram. Jesse K. Wright is JESSEKWRIGHT. Certainly any of the posts, love interaction below that, but hit me with a direct message. I'm pretty good at getting back within a day or so. Have a website, balancethebar.com. It's all the information, a lot of what we talked about here and more, a lot of cool interviews, really good information, free content, just to kind of grow a soft skill set for sure. You mentioned my book, The Intent is to Grow. Great, just background, great story that all talks about this topic. And people can email me through that website as well. So if you admin at balancethebar.com, it comes right to me. If you want to send me an email, that's a great way to connect as well. And I'm active on all of those. So would love to hear from everybody. I enjoy these types of conversations.
Coach, again, thank you very much. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time and spending some time with us today.
I appreciate the opportunity. The guests that you've had a history of bringing on here, I feel like I'm in very good company. You've done a wonderful job getting your podcast off the ground. So I'm happy to play a small role. So thank you.
Thank you again. Well, guys, what an amazing episode. And if you like, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can find it on YouTube. Just type my name, Roberto Iezzi, and share it on your social media pages. And remember that you can find Sport Vitamins on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, I'm out.